I was halfway through telling my story of my diagnosis, and then the camera stopped. So let's try this again. Okay, so I've said little bits and pieces as far as I was diagnosed at age 7. My seizures went unnoticed basically from the ages of 5 to 7. We have a few home videos where you'll catch one, but mom just thought I was like daydreaming, kind of unresponsive. So basically, I was just having a bunch of daydreams, and I just had a seizure. So they just started getting more frequent. So we went to just the doctor, and the doctor, we explained what was happening, and the doctor sent me to a bigger hospital. So this was like an all-day thing. Like, we went to the doctor that morning, we got sent to the big hospital, and then the big hospital, we saw just, again, a normal doctor, and then he goes, sounds like you need to be sent to the neurology center. So we got sent to the neurologist, and it wasn't like a waiting period. It was like I was diagnosed that day. So when we went to the neurologist, he was like, I want you to tell me everything. Well, I don't remember. Like, I was 5 going to 7, and I was like, I don't know. I just blank out. Like, I go unconscious for like 5 to 10 seconds every once in a while. And he's like, okay, we're gonna do an EEG. And I really the main thing I remember is I was wearing Winnie the Pooh shoes, and I had my hair down because I wore my hair down like all the time up until the age of 13, when I was like, okay, I'll wear it up some, but it was down all the time. And the woman, I remember, she was hooking me up to the EEG, and she's like, it's taking me 3 times as long as normal because your hair's so long. And I was like, I'm sorry. And she's like, no, it's fine, your hair's beautiful. It's like, thanks. So the doctor read the EEG and said, your daughter has petit mal absence seizures. It's a classic case, and we have a group of college students here. Would you mind if we rehooked her up and did another case, another EEG, so that the students can observe what it looks like? Well, because I wasn't having tons at the age of 7, it's not like they could just hook me up and then get seizures like that. They had to like do things to make it trigger. Not getting enough oxygen to my brain, so they'd make me like blow really hard, really until like I was out of breath, and then I'd have a seizure. Flashlights in my eyes, just do things to try and get me to have a seizure. And I, like, as soon as they would catch a seizure or something, they'd be like, okay, that's what it looks like, this is this. And the medical students were like, okay, and they wrote an essay on it, on petit mal absence seizures. And then they put me on Lamictal, and they gave us a pamphlet about petit mal absence seizures and told me that my life was going to change and that things were going to be different. At the age of 7, though, I thought of it kind of like the flu. Like, okay, I'm going to be sick for a little while, then I'm going to get better. Like, I didn't realize that I had been diagnosed with a chronic illness. Like, I just thought, boom, like, okay. And then I remember asking mom, like, hey mom, how long does this usually last? And her go, I don't know when it's gonna go away, sweetie. And I was like, okay. And just kind of like walked away. And we were seeing a nurse practitioner because I got taken off of Lamictal because I refused to take it. And this is making me sick, wasn't helping, I was throwing up. And so I was seeing a nurse practitioner who was familiar with epilepsy, but she was not a neurologist. She was just a normal doctor who was kind of familiar, just to make sure like I was okay. And obviously, like, I was still having seizures, so I wasn't like okay, but I was still living life, still living a normal childhood somewhat. I just had seizures, and it wasn't any big deal. I got to live a pretty normal childhood, you know? And my mom just kind of told me, like, hey, look, I know it sucks that you're not able to ride your bicycle or you're not able to do this, but it's for your safety and things like that. So my life did change a little, but not that much. And as far as like keeping it a secret, because my mom didn't want a traumatic experience of like somebody freaking out and saying like you have that, well, bye bye, which happened with the basketball thing that I explained in an earlier video. She didn't want me to be bullied at all, so basically how she kind of put it to me as a kid was, you do have seizures, and I know you can't fully comprehend right now what that means, but people might look at you differently and might treat you mean if they know about them, and you can tell them if you want to, but just so you know, like, there are bullies and there are people out there who don't understand, don't get what's going on. And I was like, okay. I was literally like the chillest kid about it, like, because I was like, it set me apart, made me a little special, or that's what I thought, like, as a kid. So then when I was 13, they kept telling me, like, you're gonna outgrow it when you hit 13, yada yada. Well, 13 came around, I didn't outgrow them, and then I had, my seizures were just getting my worst. Like, I've already had like 4 seizures in this video, and so I got put on capsules. I was willing to take capsules, just not the liquid, because it was so nasty. It tasted like cherries. No, it didn't. It was supposed to taste like cherries. And for the EEGs, I remember having to like go down to the basement, which was like this really creepy thing, but it was like you pushed a button on the elevator that said B, and it stood for basement. And then they hooked it up, and by that point I was having so many seizures, like, I didn't have to breathe heavy, I didn't have to do any of that, like, they were just catching them. And I think they still did make me do them, just because, like, that's protocol, but they were just happening. And they tried a bunch of different medications, and then she said, there's really nothing more I can do, you need a specialist. So I got sent to a neurologist. My first neurologist, I don't remember that well. I just remember it was like a weird new experience, getting MRIs, EEGs, and all that. It was like, I'd had them before, but these were like special tests, and suddenly it was just kind of all thrust upon me. But still, it was like, so I was like chill about it, because they said, well, you didn't outgrow it by the age of 13, don't worry, some people outgrow it by the age of 16, so you haven't missed your gap yet. And I was like, okay, cool. I guess I was just like still really holding on to hope, which I still am, but it was like I'm not gonna worry about it. And I still kept it kind of hush hush during high school, because I wanted to be treated normal again. I didn't want people to see the seizures side of me, my health side, and treat me differently. I wanted them to like me and treat me normal for my personality and who I was as a person. Like, I did plays during high school. Well, I wanted to get a part based off my talent, not based off of like, okay, she has seizures. So I was getting pretty big roles and getting away with the fact that I had seizures. No one knew until like my fourth play when I started having seizures really bad, and then I was like, oh, I gotta tell him. So my senior year came around, and I was sitting in a pizza parlor with my brother, and I like just started shaking, and I fell to the ground, and he like picked me up and carried me, put me in the car. We drove home, and he's like, I don't know what's going on. And mom goes, well, this is some type of seizure. It's not a grand mal, but it's some type of seizure. So I went to MEA, the emergency center, and I got hooked up and put on Ativan, and then I did another EEG, and they were like, alright, she has myoclonic seizures, and this is what happens for this. And so again, I was like, senior year, things are looking bright. Like, I don't know, it just didn't really hit me like how life is going to change in my senior year, you know? And so I still was planning on going to college that fall. I still was planning on just living normal life. Like, anyway, so I didn't know what I wanted to go to college for, so I took a gap year to try and figure that out. And in that gap year, things got really bad, and I ended up trying college and then not being able to do it because the stress and stuff was just really bad. Well, in my seizure year, I started seeing an epileptologist who was like more special, and so my doctor's appointments got more frequent, and then it kind of started to hit me like, finally, like, okay, I'd gone 7, I was diagnosed at 7, and so, okay, I'd gone 11 years treating this like, and so then it hit me in my senior year, like, whoa. Like, it like clicked. I don't know how else to explain it. And, the doctor, I remember him calling me a liar, because I was like, I have like 50 seizures a day, and him being like, I do not believe you. He was, from the Middle East, or something, I don't remember. He had a really, really hard accent, and we would ask him to like repeat stuff, and that would really tick him off. So I had a video EEG, and he took me off all my meds cold turkey, which you do not do ever, but he did it. And he was like, okay, now I believe you. I'm like, nah, duh. Like, they had to rush me back. I was having so many seizures, they had to rush me back and like try and like hold me down to get in. Well, I already had an IV in my arm, but it had like turned because I was shaking so bad, so they had to like undo it, insert it again, so that they could get Ativan like straight to my system. And once I was like kind of chill, I still was having seizures. So then I was like, okay, I can deal with this, and I'd start taking the medication. Those kind of calmed down, chilled out. I wasn't having that many. And then I was like, okay, I can handle life. Like, I'm having absence. It's okay. I'm not able to drive. It's okay. Just doing things that kind of help cope with the fact that I had seizures. I was still working a job. I was still doing fairly okay in school. I mean, I was by no means a genius. I was homeschooled, but I was doing fine, I guess is what I'm saying. I wasn't like just like excelling, but I was fine. So I then tried college, didn't work out, and then at the age of 21, I had my first like full-on convulsive seizure. Where was I? I was it was in August of last year, and I want to say I was just sitting in like the chair, and suddenly I then was on the ground, and Mom was just super confused, like we all were. And so I was convulsing, and she was like, "Oh my goodness, this what's going on?" So I had a video EEG because those started up, and the video EEG said like, okay, you have non-epileptic seizures, which was a relief for my mom, because if you have epileptic seizures like that are convulsing, it can really like damage your brain. And non-epileptic seizures, not so much. They still are seizures, but they're not epileptic seizures. It's confusing until you learn the difference. So that's when I started really, I guess it was like last year that I started really, I don't want to use the word concern, but I started looking at life in a whole different perspective of like, okay, now I'm on a ton of medication now. This has happened, and I like just reflected on my life before, like all those years, and I was just, I don't want to say the word, I was just shocked that like I'd gone that many years without like really realizing what had happened. So I started seeing a cognitive therapist, where basically these seizures, my convulsive ones, are brought on by stress, anxiety, stuff like that. And sometimes I don't feel stressed or anxious or anything, but they just happen because I've been stressed or anxious or something. I might not be feeling that like in the moment, but they happen. They just like randomly happen. 40% of people with seizures have non-epileptic seizures. So out of 100, 40% have those. And I remember like just being, I don't know, confused. I was like, I'm literally in all the rarest categories. My epileptologist, we switched epileptologists because he was a jerk, like the one who quit my stuff, my self cold turkey. Plus he didn't tell us he was going to Pennsylvania. Thanks for the heads up, dude. But he was like, boom, and left. Didn't even bother to find us a different epileptologist or doctor or anything. But we got a great epileptologist in Birmingham at UAB. And he was just so nice. Like, he acted like he had all the time in the world for me. Our first time meeting, we probably sat there and talked for an hour and a half. And so he had already read all my medical history, and he was just clarifying everything. And then he then asked, do you have any idea what could have started these? And he's like, did you ever have a high fever? Were you ever super sick? Do you have a history of family seizures? Do you have did you get hurt? Did you bump your head? And like all that. And I was like, no. And he goes, it's so rare for people to just start having seizures. He goes, but I think, and I didn't even know this was possible, but it is. He goes, you were born with seizures, and actually they just didn't develop until later in life. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, so basically you were born in your brain or in your body, in your makeup or whatever, you already had that I guess problem or whatnot, because they just didn't start happening till later. Those weren't his words. He made it make a lot more sense than I am. I'm not a doctor. So I don't know exactly how to put it. So that happened, and then I was like, okay, what does this mean? He goes, well, you're in my top 3 most difficult cases right now, and he sent my story all over the United States, like to specialists, doctors that, outside of the United States. My name's been to Germany. It's been to like Russia, France, probably, I don't know if it's been to Africa or not, but he sent my story like everywhere, trying to get feedback. And they were like, okay, try this, try this, try this, try this. Like, a bunch of doctors got involved with me, which was really great. And we finally were starting to kind of see some results, and we're kind of starting to figure things out. A year ago, we started kind of figured things out. And since then, it's just been like a wild roller coaster. But that's when I was diagnosed, how I was diagnosed, to the best of my ability that I can explain. At first, when I was just having convulsive seizures, we were like, okay, she just obviously needs to be in the emergency room all the time with Ativan. That wasn't the case. Like, even though Ativan helped and everything, it was like, not every time I needed a seizure did I need to be put in the emergency room, but we didn't know any better. Like, we didn't know that, okay, it's gonna stop. Like, we didn't know. And I remember one time I was having this really bad seizure, and we called 911, which 911 and the EMT people have been to my house probably like 8 times. I don't even know. Twice because we thought my appendix had burst. So I guess for seizures, like up to 6 times. And it's just been kind of a wild ride. But the fact that, like, as a kid, I didn't comprehend it, and even through high school, I didn't really get a grasp on it. And it was until I graduated high school that I was like, my life's different than everybody else's. Like, everyone's story is different, but it's like I finally kind of realized, okay, Caitlin, you are not just another person. You're normal, but you have this. And then I kind of went from there. And so it was tricky icky. I had to quit my job, and I had to quit college, which was, I didn't care about college anyway. I was doing really bad due to seizures. That's a whole story in itself. So thankfully, throughout my life, I've had really supportive people. I mean, you always have like ignorant people, but for the most part, people have always been more supportive than like ignorant. So yeah, I guess it's like a good thing that I didn't really think of this as debilitating until I was older. And even now, like, I don't think of it as being debilitating, even though sometimes it is very much so. Like, I've been paralyzed from the waist down, and just a bunch of crazy stuff has been goes on in my head. That's another story for another day. It's like, I still view myself as normal, but with a little, I need like a sign that I wear all the time that says "handle with care." People sometimes call me a China doll, and I'm like, okay, don't call me a China doll. Like, I'm not gonna break. I've been pretty doggone strong my entire life. Like, yeah, I have meltdowns every once in a while, but really, like, handle me with care, just in case something happens. But anyways, that's kind of my life story. So when people I've known my whole life, they just kind of basically, they treat me normal because they're like, all right, chill. But then if I tell someone I've just met, oh, by the way, I have seizures, they're like, and I'm like, what? So I've had to learn how to explain it and how to learn more and realize, like, my future, if this doesn't go away, which I pray it does, and pray doctors figure things out, that I'm gonna lead a different life than most people. It's gonna be a little more challenging, but with God, I can do it, you know? So, yeah, I guess, like, the doctor's list of things I couldn't do, I just kind of got rid of. So, that's my story. In very, very short words. Sometimes, even this video is like almost 27 minutes long. Anyway, thank you for your love and your prayers. They don't go unmissed and unappreciated, for sure. Love y'all.